Hello, welcome to another episode of Forgotten Cemeteries of Pacific Northwest. Today we're at North Yamhill Cemetery, located in Yamhill, Oregon, Yamhill County. Alternative names of this cemetery just includes Pike Cemetery because at one point they combined the two cemeteries. There's a whole video on that if you want to learn all about the naming and such. So let's go meet some of the local residents and hear their story. And happy Surrender Day. Some of you Civil War fans will know what that means. A little history about this cemetery. It's pretty similar to Pike, obviously, and you can watch that video if you want a longer, drawn-out explanation of the naming. This one's established in 1854 and has around 392 memorials per find-a-grave. For those that haven't seen the Pike Cemetery video, that one's over there, and there's a road that divides the two cemeteries. There's a lot of stories over there, but there are some over here as well. We did mention the past trip that the famous author Beverly Cleary is buried at this cemetery here. Today, we meet one of the first families to arrive in North Yamhill area, stop at the marker of one of the first Pullman, Washington residents, well, sort of, meet a Civil War vet, and finally hear the story of a woman's husband that magically disappeared one day. Was it an Indian attack? Or does the confession of a small boy who heard whispers of his mom in the ranch hand have something to do with the man's disappearance? Uh-oh, sounds like a Hallmark mystery movie. And up ahead is John B. Perkins, who may be the oldest birthing in this cemetery, born in 1811 in New York. At one point, he does move to Indiana with his parents, Eli and Sarah, who actually met at Masonic Lafayette Cemetery. In April of 1844, John's family and his wife would leave for Oregon. However, John and his wife would split off from the family and make their way to the Whitman Mission, where John would run and repair the grist mill. He was also one of the superintendent of operations there. In 1845, he would leave the mission for this area, North Yamhill. I read that he was like one of the 10 families to be the first to settle this entire area. He was also the first to build a grist mill in Yamhill County and built one of the first sawmills. Also helped with starting up the first woolen factories in Oregon, so quite a bit of history behind that name. Speaking of the Perkins family history, we have not covered Joel Perkins specifically. We visited his parents at Masonic Cemetery in Lafayette, Oregon. Joel was not buried here. In fact, nobody knows what happened to Joel's body, as his burial details are unknown. Well, two people may know. Another Yamhill County crazy story here. Let's start off at the beginning. Joel was born in Perrysburg, New York, 1821. His family would make their way west, settling in Lafayette, Indiana. The Perkins family, as said, would take the Oregon Trail in 1844. Now, Joel would live with an individual buried across the road at Pike Cemetery, who we also covered, and that would be the famous Jacob Hahn. And we covered the epic Hahn massacre story, so check out my Pike Cemetery vid if you want to learn about that crazy one. He would marry Jacob's daughter, Laura Hahn, having 3 children with her. Joel goes on to find the town of Lafayette, Oregon in 1846, then goes on to find the town of Perkinsville, Oregon. You know that today as Grants Pass. On top of that, Joel goes on to establish Perkinsville Ferry on Rogue River. Guy was pretty much big in the business and established a ferry service and general store, so highly successful, and did take part in the California Gold Rush in 1848. So sounds like a fairy tale ending, huh? Successful Oregon Trail story. Not exactly. On a sunny day, I don't know if it was sunny, but it adds to the scenery, June 24th, 1856, Joel and his family were staying at a ranch along the Klamath River. It was his 6th wedding anniversary. Joel and his handyman, John Malone, who had been working for him over a year, went out to check the livestock. The problem is, John Malone, the handyman, returns from the trip, but not Joel Perkins. Night arrives and the ranch owner is concerned. Where is Joel Perkins? John Malone simply replies, Indians must have got him. He's gone. Strangely enough, John and Joel's wife, Laura Perkins, insist he's gone. We need to take the livestock and return north. The Indians killed him. Like, sort of pushy and stuff, really in a hurry. A little odd. Your husband disappears and you make 0 attempts to find him. Oddly enough, a small boy who is the adopted son of Joel Perkins begs the ranch owner to keep him, saying, please let me stay with you. And this is where things get a bit spicy. The owner discovers that the boy often heard Laura Perkins and the handyman John conspiring to kill Joel Perkins on the road. A search party comes into play. They trick John Malone by saying, Laura Perkins told us everything. What do you know? He then confesses to everything. He said he waited until he was alone with Joel Perkins, then shot him and beat his skull in with the butt of a rifle. What's even more disturbing is Joel Perkins begged for his life at the end, saying he had children to take care of. Malone, however, continued his deed and finished Joel off. He also stated that he was in love with Laura, but did curse her name in the whole confession process apparently. Malone would be arrested and Laura would be charged in the crime. August 23rd, a month after the murder, Malone hangs himself in his jail cell with a chain he was fastened to. Laura would be tried too, but charges were dropped. Can't do much with the dead suspect, I guess, huh? She goes on to marry another man 6 years later named David Patterson. Her final resting place can be found in Wasco County. Sadly, we'll never know where Joel's final resting place was. He's out there somewhere in the Oregon wilderness. However, you could sort of pay respects to Joel by visiting Joel Perkins Park in Lafayette, Oregon. These days is a bit of a quiet park. Those who visit rarely know what happened in June of 1856, I wonder. Well, here's a nice valley shot. Somewhere out there is the resting place of Orville Stewart. Not much on his background except he was born in Oregon in 1847 and moved to Pullman, Washington in 1881, which Pullman was originally known as Three Forks. Orville actually established the first store in Pullman. Looks like he died in Utah, but his remains were brought here, somewhere out there in this cemetery. Alright, this bee is like in love with the camera, so I'm trying to get through this last headstone here. I always try to find a Civil War soldier in these cemeteries. Here's John Wright. He was enlisted in Company G of the 119th Illinois Infantry. He also perhaps took part in the major final last battle in the Civil War called the Battle of Fort Blakely in Alabama, which took place hours after General Lee surrendered to Grant. Another cool point is the United States colored troops played a pivotal role in the attack of the Confederate Army in this battle, giving victory to the USA. I did read that it was generally agreed that the Battle of Palmito Ranch in Texas in May of 1865 was indeed the last Civil War battle. However, another source says the Battle of Hodby Bridge. Regardless, for those that live in Indiana, you can visit the headstone of John J. Williams, believed to be the last soldier killed in the Civil War. His grave is listed as being at Jay County Farm in a cow pasture out in the quiet Indiana farm country. Not buried in North Yamhill Cemetery, but just across the separation road in Pike Cemetery, you'll find the final resting place of Clara Glatton Kelty. We were not aware of her tragic story during our last visit here, but we did hear Clara's unfortunate end at Bethel Cemetery, where we stopped by the headstone of Oscar Kelty. I won't go into the full story, but feel free to watch that cemetery visit if you're interested into one of the darker stories you'll find in cemetery research in Oregon. I'll link the video below. Claire, unfortunately, was murdered by her husband June 9th, 1887 at the age of 20. Visiting, so those that watch the Bethel Cemetery video wonder where her final resting place was. Alrighty, time for the tour. There's Pike over there. What we're interested in. North Yamhill. Things have changed a little bit since we last visited. There's like a nice little fence, and overall this cemetery is taken care of pretty well. Doesn't look like crazy vandalism or anything like that like we've seen in the past. So it's a very pleasant one to visit. These guys need some help. Starting to get sunny in Oregon. Pretty. Wanted to see who this was. Oh, Spanish-American War. Usually I see that style of headstone, I think Civil War right off the bat. little critters around this morning. My wife was watching something come out of the ground and steal a bunch of grass and then run back in this little hidey hole. A lot of birds, and then the bees are out already. Fortunately, it's been friendly bees. I don't know if you can see that guy, but one of those big bumblebees. And a little one kept flying on my finger when I was trying to film a little bit ago. At least it wasn't yellow jackets. I hate those little bastards. Those things are so mean. Get some bee hate in the video. We met John Perkins, his cool headstone memorial. Looks like the same designs to the right. That one's kind of leaning forward a little bit. There's a very unique one over here. I think we've seen the design before, but I always think it's really cool. I can't make out what flowers those are, but a very cool one. Trying to find a little dog one. I don't know if it's a dog's grave, but I was walking past. I swear to God, I thought it was a real dog. It's that realistic. It's somewhere over here. Oh, 22. Jeez, what happened to them? I swear there used to be like a big boot memorial here or something. It was one really unique. I've seen it online, but I don't see it this trip. I wonder what happened to it. That little dog looks so real from a distance. Maybe the boot's under that. I don't know. I think it's right on the Find a Grave page too for this memorial. Oh shoot. There's one headstone that fell over. It's a woodsman of the world too. And another one. Well, maybe there is a little bit of vandalism. Who knows? Could just be weathering. Anywho, hope you enjoyed the cemetery visit. Nice spring visit. If you have any other recommendations for cemeteries to visit in Oregon or Southern Washington, feel free to pipe up below. Hope you're doing good and enjoy the weather. Thanks for watching.